Alright guys, so I'm back yet again with another deck profile from Cardfight Vanguard Dear Days on the Nintendo Switch. This time we'll be doing version 1 of our Dragon Empire Nirvana deck. Which version 1, as always, everything through the first additional card pass through the booster set 7. Although in this deck's case, it is only using cards from the base game, so you can actually play this deck without buying any of the DLC. Which, as you can see here, like with Magnolia before, this is the first of 2 different Nirvana builds that we are going to be doing. This one is focused solely on the Grade 3 version of Nirvana. We have a separate build for the Grade 4 Mahar Nirvana that we'll be going through later. But I did decide to make a separate Grade 3 focus build pretty much solely because of Vairina Erger, because I thought he was pretty cool, and his skill is name-locked specifically to the Grade 3 Nirvana. And then also, this deck gave me an excuse to run a Blaze Maiden engine, and Blaze Maidens are cute. So, I jumped on that chance. But, I'm not going to pretend like this deck is as strong as the Grade 4 variant, because it's not. It is very piece-reliant. Although the deck does end up being really fun to play, and it can get your front row hitting some pretty insane numbers as well. So anyway, like always, we'll be going through the deck, and then we'll show it off in one card fight so you can see it in action. So starting first with our ride deck, we do have our Grade 0 starter, which is Sunrise Egg. So when this unit is rode upon, if you win second, draw a card. Same starter skill we always have. Next up, for our Grade 1, we have Blaze Maiden Reno. So her auto ability, when this unit is rode upon by Blaze Maiden Ryu, you can search your deck for up to 1 Trick Star, call it to Rearguard Circle, and shuffle your deck. Then she has a continuous ability that's active on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle that says during the battle of this unit attack, this unit gets power plus 2000. So this card lets you search out your Trick Star. Trick Star is a very important card in this deck, considering it is focused on overdress, and all of your overdress cards have to be overdressed on top of Trick Star. So being able to search one out and being guaranteed to get at least one of them is very helpful. So next for our Grade 2, we have Blaze Maiden Ryu. So her auto ability, when this unit is rode upon by Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana, you can Soul Blast 1 to search your deck for up to 1 Vairina, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle your deck. And then she has the same continuous ability as Reno, where when she attacks, she gets plus 2000. So this lets you search out Vairina. Now, this is specifically just the original form of Vairina, and not any card with Vairina in its card name, unfortunately. So it can't search out any Vairina, only that specific one, which we are actually only running 1 copy of because it's actually kind of the least useful Vairina in the deck. A lot of the times I actually end up using it as like discard fodder or something. But this card does let you search it out, so if nothing else, you get to thin your deck a little bit and get a +1 to your hand. And if you happen to draw into it or damage check it or whatever before you get to use this card's ability, then you save the Soul Blast, I guess. So, lastly for our Grade 3, we have Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana. So he has an activate ability that says once per turn, you can discard a card from your hand to choose a Grade 0 card from your drop and call it to Rearguard Circle. So most of the time that ability is going to be used to revive your Trick Stars from your drop in order to overdress on top of them. Although sometimes you can actually use this first skill to revive some of your Blaze Maiden triggers as well for a strategy that I'll get into later. But additionally, he has an auto ability that says when this unit attacks, you can counterblast 1, and this unit and all of your units with the overdress ability get power plus 10,000 until end of turn. So most of the time, both your front row rear guards are going to have the overdress ability when he attacks. So this ability should be powering up your entire front row most of the time, so that's obviously going to make all of your attacks a lot more powerful. And we actually have several different ways in order to power up our front row in this deck, so this ability will stack with all those as well, so we can potentially get our front row hitting some pretty insane numbers. So that's our ride deck. Moving on to the main deck. First off, we do have our 3 additional copies of Nirvana for Persona ride purposes. And of course we are using the DSR alternate art because it looks really, really cool. So next for our grade 3s, we're running 1 copy of Vairina Valiente. So this is our first overdress card, so it has the overdress ability. And you can overdress it on top of Trickstar or a grade 3 or less unit in the overdress state. Which, real quick, if you don't know how overdress works, it's basically just any time that you would normal call it. Instead of normal calling, you can place it on top of the specified unit, and that specified unit becomes the original dress, and then this card is considered to be in the overdress state, which can affect some of the other abilities. So he has a continuous ability that says this unit gets power plus 5,000 for each of this unit's original dress. So if you put him directly on Trickstar, he'll gain an extra 5. If you put him on top of a unit in the overdress state, he'll gain at least 10k, potentially more. So that's a pretty powerful power-up skill. And then he also has an auto ability that says once per turn, when the attack of this unit in the overdress state hits, you can counterblast 1 and discard a card from your hand and stand this unit. So he can give you an extra attack by restanding himself, although he does have to hit, so most of the time your opponent is just going to block his attack. So you don't actually get that restand off very often, although it can be a good pressure unit just to force your opponent to guard to prevent you from getting it. So next for the grade 3s, we are running 2 copies of Vairina Erger. So again, another overdress unit, and you overdress him on top of a unit in the overdress state. So this is the one overdress unit that you can't put directly onto Trickstar. You had to have another Vairina already overdressed on your field, and then overdress Erger on top of them. But he has a continuous ability that says this unit gets the original power of all of its original dress. So if you put him on top of one of your grade 2 Vairinas, he's going to be gaining at least 15k, potentially more if you put him on top of Vairina Valiente that was already overdressed on top of a grade 2 Vairina. He can potentially gain, what, 28k just from that. So he can hit pretty crazy numbers just on his own. And that power gain is a continuous ability, so it's active during your opponent's turn as well. So that can make it really hard for your opponent to attack into him as well. But additionally, he has an auto ability that says when this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, if this unit is in the overdress state, you can counterblast 1, and this unit gets power plus 15,000, critical plus 1 until end of that battle. And then at the end of that battle, you have to put all this unit's original dress into the drop. So that's a pretty powerful ability. It increases its power and gives him an extra crit. Although it is a one and done kind of situation because he loses all of his original dress after you use that ability. So he will no longer be in the overdress state, so you can't use that ability again. And also his continuous ability won't be powering him up anymore since he won't have any original dress to gain the power of. So once you use that skill, he's pretty much a vanilla 13k after that. So be selective when you want to use that, although it can make a pretty powerful finishing skill. So that's all of our grade 3s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we are running 4 copies of Blaze Maiden Elba. So she's got an activate ability that says once per turn you can counterblast 1 and rest 3 rear guards with Blaze Maiden in their different card names to draw a card and choose one of your vanguards, and it gets a continuous ability that says all of your front row units get power plus 10,000 until end of turn. So this is the main piece of that Blaze Maiden engine that I mentioned earlier, which it does require you to have 3 different named Blaze Maidens out on your field, which we are running quite a few different Blaze Maidens in the deck. So usually what I do with this card is I get it on my back row, actually, along with 2 other Blaze Maidens, which I either just call from my hand, or if you already have your Trickstars, then you can use Nirvana's skill to actually revive one of the Blaze Maiden triggers that you've already used up in your drop zone, and get onto your field just to have another piece to pay her cost. But anyway, you set up your back row to be all Blaze Maidens, and then you use her ability. You get an extra draw, and you power up your front row by 10k, which again stacks with your Persona Ride power up. It stacks with Nirvana's skill that powers up your front row. So all these power ups together can get your front row beefed up to be very, very strong. And that really helps make up for the fact that you won't be able to boost since you're resting your entire back row to do this. But it is a pretty cool combo you can pull off. So next for our grade 2s, we just have our overdress units. So first off, we have our one copy of Vairina, which again, this is mostly here just to be searched off of Ryu's skill. But again, it's got the overdress ability. You overdress it on top of Trickstar. And then he has an auto ability that says when this unit in the overdress state attacks a Vanguard, this unit gets power plus 10,000 until end of that battle. Then you can Soul Blast 2 and choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So, like I said, I don't go into this card very often. A lot of the time it just ends up being discard fodder for me. However, if you do have to go into it, then it can be a 20k beat stick for free, which is pretty good. I don't usually opt to use the Soul Blast part of the skill because we need the soul much more for Vairina Erger's ability. We need that vastly more than we need the retire in most situations. So we don't actually use that very often, but yeah, he's a 20k beat stick for free if you do end up having to use him for something. So next we're running 4 copies of Vairina Erger. So again, you overdress him on top of Trickstar, and then he's got an auto ability that says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if it is overdress, then you can counterblast 1 to draw 2 cards, and this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So this is your main draw engine of the deck. Like I said, this deck is very piece reliant, so having as much draw power as possible is very helpful. And between Arcs and Elba, you can actually get 3 extra draws a turn, potentially. So that does help beef up your hand quite a bit. So then lastly, for our grade 2s, we are running 4 copies of Vairina Erger. So this is the main reason that I built this entire deck. And once again, you overdress him on top of Trickstar. And he has auto ability that is activated from your hand, actually. That says, at the end of the battle, your Trickstar attack the Vanguard. If your Vanguard is Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana, you can Soul Blast 2, and overdress this card on your Trickstar on rearguard circle as stand, and countercharge 1. Then he also has a continuous ability when he's on rearguard or guardian circle. That says, if this unit is in the overdress state, this unit gets power plus 10,000, shield plus 10,000. So, this is a very cool card. You have to attack your opponent's Vanguard with a Trickstar in your front row, which Trickstar, of course, is a grade 0, that's only a 5k, but between Elba powering up your front row and potentially a Persona Ride as well, you should be able to get Trickstar to the point where he can at least hit the Vanguard. So you attack with your Trickstar, and then for a cost of Soul Blast 2, you can Superior Overdress into Vairina Erger. So he will give you a 4th attack. He also gives you a counter charge, which is good since this deck can get a little bit counterblast heavy between Nirvana and Arcs and Elba's skills all costing counterblast. So you get the refund, the resource, and you get the extra attack out of it. It does cost a Soul Blast too, so you do have to manage your soul kind of closely, but it is a very cool skill. And when he attacks, he gains an extra 10k on his own just for being in the overdress state. So he'll be at 20k on his own, plus again all the stack power-ups that you get from your other various abilities. And then during your opponent's turn, you can of course intercept with him, and he'll be a 15k intercept, which will get Trickstar back into your drop, which on your next turn you can revive with Nirvana and potentially loop the entire process again if you have another Erger in your hand. So this is the main star of the deck, and your main focus on a lot of your offense. So that's all of our grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s. First off, we have 3 copies of Blaze Maiden Mirren. So this is another Blaze Maiden for Elba's ability. And she, of course, has an auto ability that says when your unit with the overdress ability attacks, you can put this unit into your soul to choose one of your units with the overdress ability, and it gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So the power gain is nice, but she's mainly here just to be able to shove herself into your soul, so you can have a soul engine in order to always be able to pay Vairina Erger's cost, which is especially necessary if you don't get your persona rides off. So yeah, she's mainly there to be a soul engine. But since Elba's skill rests her during the main phase, what you can do is you can rest her to use Elba's skill and then just shove her into the soul during the battle phase, and it all flows together quite nicely. So next for our grade 1s, we just have our Sentinels. So first we have our 3 copies of Twin Buckler Dragon, just your standard Perfect Guard. And then, of course, our last Sentinel is the 1 copy of our Blitz Order Elementaria Sanctitude, which you can play without paying the cost if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive. So that's actually all of our grade 1s, so moving on to the grade 0s. First off, we do have 4 copies of Trickstar. So his continuous ability, this unit cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effects. So it's a pretty good protection ability, though it doesn't come into play a whole lot, considering he usually isn't on your field long enough to take advantage of it, because he immediately gets overdressed upon. But he is obviously a vital part of the deck, being necessary for all of our overdress units to be placed on. So you definitely want to run him at 4. So next for our grade 0s, we just have our trigger lineup, which is 7 crit, 4 front, 4 heal, and 1 over. So starting with our crit triggers, first off we have 4 copies of Blaze Maiden Zone A. So she's just your vanilla crit, though she is the one you definitely want to use because she has Blaze Maiden in her name. So she can be used to pay Elba's cost. Additionally, we're running 3 copies of Burning Flail Dragon. So the crit with an effect, at the end of battle it boosted, you can put it into your soul, choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 2,000 until end of turn. I don't think I've ever used that ability in this deck, though if you're really desperate for the soul, I guess you do have that option. Next up, for our fronts, we have 4 copies of Blaze Maiden Parama. So she is the front with a skill. If your opponent's Vanguard is greater or greater, it gets shield plus 5,000. So 20k shield and another Blaze Maiden name. And then for our heals, we have 4 copies of Blaze Maiden Rona. So again, vanilla heal, and also Blaze Maiden in the name. Which, you can run the effect heals if you want, though none of those have Blaze Maiden in their name, so that will be lowering your overall number of Blaze Maidens. Another option you do have, if you want to, you can run 2 copies of Rona and 2 copies of Rayoni in order to maximize the different number of differently named Blaze Maidens in your deck, though I don't find it to be strictly necessary. So then lastly, we just have our 1 over trigger, which is Dragon Deity King of Resurgence, Drag Veda. So his additional effect, choose one of your Vanguards and stand it. So restanding your Vanguard, very powerful skill. Obviously, Nirvana's ability is also on attack, so if you have the counterblast to swing it, you can actually use Nirvana's skill twice in one turn to power up your entire front row twice if you end up checking into this. So that is the deck, so we will go ahead and have our 1 fight. So let's see, we'll fight Rasen, I guess. And we will be going second. Alright, so let's drop one of these Elbas. Alright, Reno. Then we can use Sunrise Egg skill to draw. And then we can just go ahead and attack We got 3 trick stars in our hand right off the bat. Not too long ago, they actually showed a promo card named Blaze Maiden Cindy that would actually work perfectly with this deck, almost like it was custom made for it. I don't know if that card's gonna end up getting added to Deer Days or not, but if it does, I'll definitely be putting it in. And we'll let that through. And I think we'll let that through too. And as much as I hate to go to 3 right off the bat, I'm gonna let that through too. Oh, and then I get the front trigger. Well, that's not helpful. Oh well. So we'll drop one of these trick stars since our hand's full of them. To ride Ryu. Then we can use Reno's skill to search out the last trick star from our deck. And then we can go ahead and overdress into Vairina Erger and use his skill to counterblast. And we draw 2. So let's see. We'll go ahead and call Elba. And we'll call Mirren as well. And put her over here. And I think we are good. So we'll go ahead and attack with our Vanguard first. And then we'll get a front trigger that's actually useful. Oh, and he pulls his over trigger. Oh man. Well, that kind of shut down our offense. So I guess we'll just have Elba attack into Vairina. And that's all we're gonna be able to do this turn. So we'll just go ahead and end our turn. As he calls out his plant tokens, and then has Momoke eat them all. And he had another Vairina in his hand, so that didn't really help us much either. Alright, so let's see, we just need 5 to block that, so I'm actually going to intercept with Vairina Erger. And we will guard this one, since those other 2 are going to be pretty big. He gets a heal trigger, which he doesn't get, but he gets the power. And he gets another heal. Alright, well we're definitely going to have to let these last 2 attacks through. Now Vairina's going to gain 50,000 power. So we're going to let that through too. Well, it's 5-1 damage-wise right now, so that's not great. And then we draw our heal. Wonderful. Alright. So, let's drop... I think I had to drop one of those Trick Stars, actually. To ride Nirvana. Then we'll use Ryu's skill to Soul Blast. Search out Vairina from our deck. So let's go ahead and call Rona to our back row, and then we'll move Elba back and use her skill to Counter Blast and rest our back row. And then our front row will gain 10k and we'll get to draw. So then we'll call Trickstar from our hand over here. And we will use Nirvana's skill to drop Vairina and revive another Trickstar. And then we'll overdress into arcs once again. And use arc skill to Counter Blast and draw 2. And then I think we are good to go. So we'll go ahead and attack with Trickstar first. And he gets a third heal trigger, which he still doesn't get. Alright, so now we can activate Vairina Erger's skill from our hands, so we'll Soul Blast 2. And then Superior Overdress, which will let us countercharge. So next we'll attack with our Vanguard and use Nirvana's skill to Counter Blast again. And power up our front row by another 10k. And we get a crit trigger, nice. So we'll give the crit to Nirvana and the power to Erger. Nice, we got a heal on top of that. So we'll heal 1. And we'll give that power to arcs. Alright, so next we'll attack with arcs for 45,000. And actually we'll go ahead and use Mirren's skill to shove her into the soul. And then we'll give that extra 5k to arcs as well, so he'll be at 50,000. He gets a draw trigger. So then lastly we'll attack with Erger. And he guards and intercepts. Alright, so that was a good turn. We actually have the lead in damage now. As he powers up his Momoke again. And then he's going to use his order to revive Radilina, probably. Yep. And now Caryophyllus' skill will give him his soul. Alright, so let's block this one. let's see. Those other two are going to be really big, so let's block this one with, let's see, Erger's at 15k intercept. And we need to reset our Trickstar anyway. So we'll intercept with Erger. And then we'll drop a heal with it. So that'll be 2 to pass. And he gets a draw trigger. And let's see, we'll guard that one. And that one is massive, so we're gonna let that one through. Oh, we pull our over trigger. Oh man, so that nullified that damage. And we drew Erger, nice. Alright, so let's Persona Ride. And now, let's see, we're going to go ahead and overdress Vairina Erger over top of Arcs. And then we'll go ahead and use Nirvana's skill, and we'll drop that Elba to revive one of our Trickstars. And then I guess we'll go ahead and call Parama to rear guard. And then we can use Elba's skill to counterblast and rest all 3 of them. To power up our front row and draw yet again. So I think we are set up, so we can go ahead and attack with Trickstar first. And he guards. Then we can use Erger's skill from our hand to Soul Blast. And Superior Overdress. And then, of course, Counter Charge yet again. So now we'll attack with Nirvana. And use his skill to Counter Blast. And power up our front row yet again. And he perfect guards. And we get a crit trigger, nice. So we'll give both those effects to Erger. And then we'll go ahead and attack with Erger for 60,002 crit. And he perfect guards again. So then lastly we'll attack with Expecta. And I'm actually going to take the chance and use his skill here, so we'll Counter Blast. And he'll gain 15,000 power and a crit for 73,002 crit. And he lets it through. Nice. So we should have him here. Yep, that draw is not going to save him, so we got him. So there you go. That was our Grade 3 Nirvana deck. I will be back soon with the Grade 4 Mahar Nirvana variant. So until then, I guess that's all we got for this video. So, lots of luck to you and yours.